Last fall on the West Steps, just outside here, were the scene of almost daily demonstrations by students and others motivated by what they believe and saw as racial bias in deadly police encounters with minorities. These demonstrations were mainly motivated by incidents in other states, but they resonated here in Colorado because our state, unfortunately, has had its own well-publicized problems. To put it blunt, public confidence in our police is low. Without public support, the difficult job of law enforcement becomes even harder. Going into this session, I asked my colleagues, what can we do legislatively to rebuild trust between the police and the communities that our law enforcement serve? Those discussions intensified as we began the 2015 session. Speaker Dickie Lee Hullinghorst asked me to lead a work group to coordinate the House efforts to turn these discussions into concrete legislative proposals. We have been very thorough in our stakeholding. We have considered every aspect of the issue. We've held community panels in our districts and in neighboring districts. We have consulted with our fellow legislators on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers, as well as with law enforcement agencies and with local governments. Today, I'm proud to report that we have a plan. We have a legislative package of 10 bills today. 7 of those bills are being introduced in the House. Most of them will be introduced today. 3 bills will be introduced in the Senate. Many of these bills have bipartisan support, and many of those sponsors are with us today. What we are presenting to you today is an example of how this legislature can work together on behalf of the people of Colorado. After we give you an overview of the package, we will be available to answer your questions. Introducing our first bill will be Representatives Joe Salazar and Representative Danae Escar.
Thank you all, and good afternoon. We've had a number of cases in which Coloradans have been hassled by the police and in some cases even brought up on charges simply for making a video or audio recording of police activity. Representative Salazar and I are carrying a bill that clarifies that any person has the right to record law enforcement officers as long as the person doing the recording does not physically get in the way of the officers performing their duties. A police officer may ask a citizen to step back, but a police officer may not ask a citizen to turn off their cell phone cameras.
The next bill is based on an understanding that maintaining order means giving lawful orders. We grant law enforcement officers the authority to give lawful orders, and we expect civilians to obey those lawful orders. But now and then, like in the previous example of telling a person to put away their cell phone, an officer issues a command that he or she has no authority to demand. This bill, which I'm sponsoring with Representative Justin Everett, will require a court to dismiss all charges against a defendant that were based on the violation of an order issued by a law enforcement officer that is found to be unlawful. My next bill, which I'm sponsoring with Senator Ellen Roberts and former Weld County Sheriff and now Senator John Cook, addresses the impropriety, or at least the appearance of impropriety, when a law enforcement officer is involved in a shooting and members of the officer's own agency performs the initial investigation. Our bill requires law enforcement agencies to develop procedures for involving other law enforcement agencies in those investigations. It also says that if a district attorney declines to file criminal charges against a police officer in an officer-involved shooting, the DA must make a written public disclosure of the findings that were the basis for not charging the officer. And I'll turn it on over to Representative Daniel Kagan.
Thank you, Representative Salazar. And the next bill, which is Representative Salazar's bill and mine, we are co-prime sponsors of, says that when a prosecutor decides not to file charges in a case of alleged police misconduct resulting in serious bodily injury or death, then that prosecutorial decision may be challenged in court. If a judge, after careful review, finds that a decision not to prosecute was an abuse of discretion, the judge may reverse the prosecutor's decision and may appoint a special prosecutor to handle the case. Now, for Coloradans to have confidence in our justice system, they must know that prosecutors' decisions are subject to some kind of independent, meaningful review for abuse. These cases will be very rare, and the hurdle is very high. But Coloradans must be able to see that justice is done. Now, the next bill in the package is one that I am sponsoring in the House, and I am honored to have Senator Cook as the Senate sponsor. And this bill will create a grant program to provide the major funding to expand a program already being tested in some Colorado law enforcement agencies, namely body cameras worn by law enforcement officers. Body cams are relatively inexpensive, and they provide a video record of the situations encountered by law enforcement officers. They won't settle every allegation of misconduct by a police officer or by a member of the public, but they will settle some of those controversies. Was this threat real? Was that action provoked? Was this use of force justified? Did this member of the public really assault this officer? Body cams will help to exonerate the vast majority of police officers who do their extraordinarily difficult jobs extraordinarily well. But it will also hold accountable those very few who do not, and those members of the public, very few, who make false claims, will also be held to account. I yield the podium to the prime sponsor of most of the rest of this package, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Representative Kagan. In our conversations with Coloradans from a variety of communities around the state, we hear over and over again that African Americans and Latinos are getting pulled over for no apparent reason but other than the way and what they look like. That's illegal. That's racial profiling, and it's a major violation of equality under the law, and we will not stand for it. The bill that I'm sponsoring, and I will sponsor with Senator Morgan Carroll, expands the definition of racial profiling and specifies that evidence obtained in the course of profiling motivated traffic or pedestrian stops will be inadmissible in court. In addition, separately from this bill, I am asking the Legislative Council to authorize an interim committee to meet this summer and fall. We will study the options for strategic data collection and evaluation recommendations that give us a clearer picture of whether police profiling happens regularly or rarely in Colorado. The next bill that I'm sponsoring with Senator Cook will add 4 civilians to the state Peace Officer Standards and Training Board. This board manages the training and certification of all officers working for Colorado law enforcement agencies. It also requires the post board to review and evaluate the basic academy curriculum and develop community outreach program and a recruitment program that creates a diversified applicant pool for its board and subject matter expert committees. This bill will also require the post board to include 2-hour anti-bias course, a 2-hour community policing course, and a 2-hour de-escalation course in its current existing police officers' regular in-service training. My next bill with Senators Roberts and Cook requires that an officer involved shooting, the officer's agency must provide the Division of Criminal Justice with demographic information on the officer and the individual shot and the search, and arrest information related to the incident. My final bill with Senators Cook and Robert is based on our belief that police officers should not be able to hide their records simply by joining a different police force. Under this bill, when a law enforcement officer applies for employment under another Colorado agency, the officer's previous agency must disclose the hiring agency whether the officer's employment history includes any instances in which the officer made a knowing misrepresentation. And now to introduce our remaining bill in this package is Representative Joanne Melton.
Thank you, everyone. Police use of the chokehold has sparked a national outrage. And unfortunately, Colorado has been a part of that outrage as well. When Denver recently had to pay $6 million to Marvin Booker's family, who had died at the hands of officers from the chokehold being used to him in a Denver jail in 2010. Chokeholds are dangerous and counterproductive. An individual who can't breathe is more likely to struggle than less likely to struggle. And so police have to use better ways and safer ways to restrain an uncooperative person. The bill that I will be introducing prohibits the use of the chokehold by law enforcement officers unless the officer's life is in danger for self-defense. And so that will be introduced along with this package as well.
Thank you, Representative Melton. That's our complete package. I want to close again by saying that our goal is to rebuild trust. Our goal is to close the confidence gap that now exists between some law enforcement agencies and local communities. Our goal is to build public confidence in our police officers and to build police officers' confidence that they are supported by communities that they are sworn to serve.